My sister-in-law hated me for 4 years because her brother left her best friend, but when she ruined my $2,000 wedding dress minutes before the ceremony, the family finally exposed her, and what happened next left them speechless. I'm 28 years old, I work in digital marketing, and I need to get this story off my chest because I still can't believe what happened at my wedding like 2 months ago. I mean, when I say my sister-in-law tried to ruin the most important day of my life, I'm not exaggerating even a little bit. And the worst part is that it all comes from years of resentment over something completely ridiculous. I guess I should start from the beginning. When I met Alexander like 4 years ago at a work conference, it was love at first sight, one of those things that only happens in movies, and after dating for like 6 months, he introduced me to his family. His dad was super nice, his mom a bit reserved but polite, and then there was Samantha, his younger sister. From the very first moment we met, literally from when she saw me walk through the door of their house, I felt her look of pure hatred. She didn't greet me, didn't ask me anything, basically acted like I was invisible the entire lunch. Alexander told me afterwards, not to worry, that Samantha was just cold like that with new people, but honestly, I knew there was something else. Turns out Samantha had a best friend, Taylor, who had been Alexander's girlfriend in college. And when I say girlfriend, I mean that toxic on and off relationship that we've all had at some point, the kind that ends and gets back together like 5 times until it finally all ends. Alexander told me that he and Taylor had been totally incompatible, that they fought about everything, that she wanted one thing and he wanted another, and that when they finally broke up for good, it was a relief for both of them. This was like 2 years before he met me, so it's not like I had been the reason for their breakup or anything like that. But for Samantha, apparently, Taylor was the one for her brother, like she had chosen her as her perfect future sister-in-law, and I had basically come along to ruin all her plans. The ironic thing is that Taylor and Alexander weren't even compatible. I mean, Alexander himself told me he never imagined a future with her, but Samantha lived in this fantasy where her brother and her best friend were going to end up together and live happily ever after. The next few years were horrible in terms of my relationship with Samantha. Every time we went to his parents' house, she found some way to make me feel uncomfortable. Sometimes it was passive-aggressive comments like, "Oh, Taylor always did this for Alexander this way," or Taylor knew exactly what to get him for his birthday. Other times she just straight up ignored me, like I didn't exist. At family gatherings, she'd sit as far away from me as possible, and if I tried to join a conversation she was having, she'd simply go to another room. Alexander talked to her constantly, told her she was being immature, that I was the woman he loved, and that she had to accept it. But Samantha basically told him he had made a huge mistake by letting Taylor go. Alexander's mom tried to keep the peace. Like, she always asked me to be patient with Samantha because she was the baby of the family and was used to getting her way in everything. But honestly, I was tired of being the adult in that situation. When Alexander proposed to me like a year and a half ago, it was perfect. We went away for the weekend to the beach, walked along the shore at sunset, all that romantic stuff you see in movies, and when he knelt down, I thought my heart was going to explode with happiness. We called our families that same night to tell them. My parents cried with joy. His parents also got really excited and congratulated us, but when Alexander told Samantha, she literally just said okay and hung up. No congratulations. No, I'm happy for you. Nothing. Just okay. Alexander was devastated because despite everything, he loves his sister a lot, and the fact that she couldn't be happy for him in one of the most important moments of his life really hurt him. He tried to talk to her afterwards, but Samantha basically told him that she wasn't going to pretend to be happy about something she considered a mistake. We started planning the wedding, and honestly, at first we didn't even want to invite Samantha. I told Alexander, "Look, it's our special day and we don't need that negative energy there," but his parents begged us to include her. His mom called me crying, saying that she was the only daughter she had and that it would break her heart if she wasn't at her brother's wedding. And his dad told me he knew Samantha was being difficult, but that she was family, and that he hoped she would eventually mature. So we gave in and sent her the invitation. We expected her to reject it or just not respond, but like 2 weeks later we received her RSVP. And not only that, Samantha called me, which she had never done in 4 years, and told me she had been thinking a lot and wanted to apologize for her behavior. She told me she had been immature, that she understood Alexander and I loved each other, and that she wanted to start over and welcome me into the family properly. I was in shock, honestly, because this came completely out of nowhere, but I wanted to believe it was genuine. Alexander was super happy. He thought his sister had finally come to her senses. The months before the wedding were relatively calm. Samantha didn't come to any of the dress fittings or the bachelorette party, which honestly was fine with me because I didn't want that tension in those moments. But she sent occasional messages asking how everything was going and saying she was excited. I still had my doubts. You know, because 4 years of resentment don't disappear just like that. But Alexander convinced me to give her the benefit of the doubt. The week of the wedding was total chaos with all the last-minute preparations, confirming with vendors, making sure everything was perfect. We had rented rooms at the hotel where the reception would be so that my bridesmaids, and my mom could get ready there, and Alexander and his groomsmen were in another section of the hotel. The wedding day dawned perfect. Sunny, not too hot, with a gentle breeze, like the ideal weather we had been hoping for. I woke up around 8 in the morning, super nervous but excited. We had a light breakfast with the girls, and then the whole process of getting ready started. Hair and makeup took like 2 hours, photos with the bridesmaids another 2, and everything was going perfectly. My dress was hanging in the closet of the room. It was beautiful. It had cost like $2,000. You know, crazy. But it was my wedding dress, and you only get married once. You know what I mean? It was white lace with a fitted bodice and a tulle skirt that looked like a princess. Around 3 in the afternoon, I started putting on the dress with help from my mom and my bridesmaids, all super exciting, taking photos, crying with happiness. It was 3-something. There was literally 1 hour left until the ceremony, when there was a knock on the room door. One of my bridesmaids opened it, and it was Samantha. She was wearing her guest dress, had her hair and makeup already done, she looked good, and she was carrying a large iced coffee from Starbucks in her hand. She said, "Hi, you look beautiful. Can I come in for a second?" I was surprised because honestly, I didn't expect her to come see me before the ceremony, but I told her yes, of course. She came in and started saying nice things about the dress, about how excited she was for the ceremony, and I was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, she really had changed. My mom was talking to her about something. I don't remember exactly what, when suddenly Samantha took a step towards me like she was going to give me a hug, and then everything happened in slow motion. She tripped, or so it seemed at first, and the entire iced coffee, the whole damn cup, spilled directly onto the bodice of my dress. Iced. Coffee with cream and everything, soaking the white lace, creating a huge brown stain right on the front of the dress. I froze. I literally couldn't process what had just happened. My bridesmaids screamed. My mom was in shock, and Samantha started saying, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It was an accident. I can't believe this happened." But when I looked into her eyes, I saw something that chilled my blood. There was a small smile. So small you almost couldn't notice it. But it was there. And in that moment, I knew that it hadn't been an accident. She had done it on purpose. Alexander's mom had been in the hallway outside the room waiting to come in, and when she heard the commotion, she ran in. She saw the dress, saw my face of absolute horror, and when she turned to look at Samantha, something in her daughter's expression told her everything she needed to know. I don't know what she saw exactly, but Alexander's mom, who had always been calm and peacekeeping, got furious. She told, "Samantha, get out of here right now." And Samantha tried to say, "But Mom, it was an accident." And her mom literally yelled, "I know what you did. Get out of here." She told her she didn't want to see her at the wedding, that she was uninvited from the wedding, and that they would talk later, but that at that moment she needed to leave immediately. Samantha left crying, screaming that nobody understood her and that everyone always took my side. And honestly, at that moment, I didn't care, because I was having a total panic attack looking at my ruined dress. There was less than an hour until the ceremony. All the guests were already arriving. Alexander was waiting for me at the altar, and my wedding dress was destroyed. My mom was trying to calm me down while I was basically hyperventilating, and my bridesmaids were already searching on the internet what to do with coffee stains on lace. Alexander's mom called the hotel staff, and in 5 minutes we had like 3 people from housekeeping in the room with all kinds of products trying to save the dress. They worked like crazy. Literally, I've never seen people work so fast. Using stain removers, cold water, hair dryers, everything they could think of. Alexander was calling me asking what was going on because it was already time to start the ceremony, and I obviously wasn't there. But my mom told him to just be patient, that there was a small problem with the dress, but that we were resolving it. 45 minutes after everything happened, the dress was acceptable. The stain hadn't completely disappeared. You could still see it a bit if you looked closely. But from far away and with the ceremony lighting, it wasn't that noticeable. The hotel staff had done a miracle, honestly. I put the dress on again. My bridesmaids touched up my makeup that had been ruined from crying so much, and we went down to the ceremony. All the guests had been waiting almost an hour and were confused, but when I finally entered and walked down the Tays aisle towards Alexander, who was standing there with tears in his eyes, everything else stopped mattering for a moment. The ceremony was beautiful despite everything. We got married, we cried, we kissed, and we officially became husband and wife. During the reception, I told Alexander what had happened with his sister and the dress, and I saw his face go from confusion to absolute anger. He told me he was so sorry, that he couldn't believe his sister had done something like that, and that he was going to have a serious talk with her. The days after the wedding were chaos. Alexander's parents called Samantha for a family meeting and basically told her that what she had done was unforgivable, that she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and that until she genuinely apologized to me and Alexander, they didn't want to have contact with her. They cut off the credit card they had been paying for her. Samantha, at 26 years old, still lived with her parents, and they paid for. Say made it 11 of the firsim. Say made it 11 of the firsim. Everything, because she was the spoiled one. Told her she had to move out of the house, and basically treated her like they had never treated her before. Samantha got hysterical, screaming that it was unfair, that it had been an accident, that I was manipulating everyone against her. Alexander's dad told her to stop lying, that her own mother had seen the truth in her face, and that it was time for her to take responsibility for her actions. Samantha left her parents' house that night, crying and screaming that everyone hated her. We thought the drama was finally over. But like a week later, I started receiving messages from fake profiles on Instagram and Facebook. Horrible messages telling me I was a manipulative bitch, that I had destroyed a family, that I should never have married Alexander. At first, I didn't know who it was. But then in one of the messages, the person gave themselves away by saying something very specific about the dress and the coffee. And that's when I knew it was Samantha. She sent me like 20 messages from different profiles, and in one of them, she basically confessed that yes, she had done it on purpose. That she wanted to ruin my wedding because I had ruined her vision of the perfect family, and that she was never going to forgive me for taking away from her brother and her best friend the chance to be together. I called her, and when she answered, I told her everything I had been holding in for 4 years. I told her she was a spoiled and manipulative child, that she lived in a ridiculous fantasy, that her brother and Taylor had been completely incompatible, and that their relationship had ended years before I showed up, and that both she and Taylor were losers who couldn't accept reality. I told her she had tried to ruin the most important day of my life out of childish jealousy, and that I was never going to forgive her. I hung up and blocked her from everything. Like 2 days later, Alexander's mom called me frantic, asking if I had seen Samantha. Apparently, Samantha had disappeared, wasn't answering her phone, wasn't at Taylor's house where she was supposedly staying, and nobody knew where she was. I honestly thought she was exaggerating everything to get attention, but her parents were genuinely worried. Turns out Samantha had gone to an aunt's house, Alexander's mom's sister, who lived in another city, like 3 hours away, and had told her a completely false story. She told the aunt that her parents had kicked her out of the house for no reason, that I hated her, and had convinced the whole family to hate her too, and that she had nowhere to go. The aunt, who didn't know anything about the wedding drama because she hadn't been invited, believed her everything and let her stay at her house. Alexander's mom finally managed to contact her sister and told her the truth about what Samantha had done with the dress and all the drama, and the aunt got furious with Samantha for lying to her. She kicked her out of her house that same day. When we talked with Alexander's parents about this whole situation, they told us something we didn't know. Apparently, Samantha had done this disappearing and manipulating people thing several times since high school. Every time she didn't get what she wanted or was confronted about something, she'd disappear for a few days, go to some distant relative or friend, tell them a distorted version of the story where she was the victim, and wait for everyone to worry and come begging her to come back. And it normally worked because her parents always gave in, but this time they said enough was enough, that Samantha was 26 years old and needed to grow up. Samantha ended up going back to stay with Taylor, who apparently was the only person still on her side in all this. Taylor wrote to me a few days later, a super long message trying to defend her, saying that Samantha had just made a mistake, that I was being too harsh, and that maybe if I hadn't called Samantha and yelled all those horrible things at her, she wouldn't be so emotionally bad. I responded, telling her to mind her own business, that she had no say in this, and that if she wanted to keep living in a fantasy where she and Alexander should be together, that was her problem, but that she wasn't going to manipulate me. Alexander and I were exhausted with all this drama. We were newlyweds. We were supposed to be in our happiness bubble, but instead we were dealing with his manipulative sister and this whole situation. One night, Taylor wrote to me again saying that Samantha was still missing and that she was very worried that what if something bad had happened to her, and basically trying to make me feel guilty. Alexander, who was fed up with everything, told her, well, if you're so worried, maybe we should call the police and report her as a missing person. Have them come look for you first to ask you when you last saw her. It was obviously a bluff because we knew Samantha was with her, but it worked. Like 2 hours later, Samantha showed up at her parents' house door demanding that they apologize to her for everything they had done to her. She told them that she was the victim, that they owed her an apology, and that until she got it, she wasn't going to forgive them. Her parents told her no, that the only one who owed apologies was her, and that until she took responsibility for her actions, she wasn't going to be welcome in their house. Samantha got hysterical again, started screaming that it was unfair, that they had always preferred Alexander over her, and that everything was my fault for manipulating them. Alexander's dad told her to calm down or he was going to call the police because she was making a scene on his property. And when Samantha didn't stop, he literally called the police. The officers arrived, asked Samantha to leave peacefully, and she left crying and screaming that someday everyone was going to regret how they had treated her. We left for our honeymoon like a week after all this. We desperately needed that time for ourselves and to forget about the drama for a while. And when we came back from the honeymoon, I found an email from Samantha in my inbox. It was long, basically saying she had had time to think and wanted to apologize. But then I read the full apology, and it was something like, I'm sorry you felt hurt by my actions, but I was just being a good friend to Taylor and trying to protect my brother from making a mistake. I mean, it wasn't even a real apology. She was still blaming me and justifying what she had done. I showed Alexander the email, and he just shook his head and said his sister clearly hadn't learned anything. I responded, telling her that her apology wasn't an apology, that until she took complete responsibility for ruining my wedding dress on purpose, there was nothing to talk about, and that Alexander and I were very happy together despite all her attempts to sabotage us. She didn't respond after that. It's been like 2 months since the wedding now. Alexander and I are focused on our life together, decorating our apartment, planning the future, being happy. His parents have maintained their stance with Samantha. They don't talk to her unless she genuinely apologizes. And honestly, even though I feel a bit sorry for them because they miss their daughter, I also respect that they're finally setting boundaries with her. Last week, Alexander's mom called me just to tell me she was so sorry about everything that had happened, that she had been too permissive with Samantha for years and that had created the monster she became. I told her I appreciated her words, but that it wasn't her fault, that Samantha had made her own decisions and that nobody had forced her to throw coffee on my dress. I don't know if Samantha and I will ever fix things. Honestly, I don't care that much right now. Alexander is my family now, and his parents have been amazing. And that's enough for me for now, I guess.